Hi, my name's Derek Jones. I'll be doing a speech today for Tom Durant's speech class at Labette Community College. My speech today will be about He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. So, in the early 1980s, a franchise was created that kind of changed the way that television and action figures worked fairly permanently. Um, in the early 70s, a company called Mattel was contacted to make a toy line called Star Wars. Unfortunately, they did not have the finances to do Star Wars. They really regretted this as Star Wars became one of the most popular toy lines in decades. So, in response, they started working on their own and they wanted to make something similar to Star Wars. So, they made a couple of different guys so that you could have what they were calling a He Man for all eras, one for modern military. I don't know how that's modern military, it just is. One that was more pre-science, that more mystical, and one for science fiction. They based a lot of their work on the Star Wars and other things that were popular at the time, like Conan the Barbarian, The Art of Frank Frazetta, and many others. And we ended up with quite a colorful cast of characters due to this. When you were little, these guys were very, very popular. Something along the lines of 70 million action figures were sold in 1 year. And kids everywhere saw these guys, but when you're a 5-year-old, you don't see them looking like these kind of dopey fellows here. You see these fellows, an incredibly terrifying skull face guy, and a very heroic, mighty He-Man. So these toys began and they were fairly popular, but then they created the TV show. And once they hit the TV show, that's where things came together. It was accused of being a half-hour commercial, and rightly so. I mean, they while the company did not intentionally make it so that specific toys were targeted each episode, they were still heavily featured prominently, and that show was very popular with the small crowd as we'd see He-Man and his very interesting castle and all sorts of different locations and characters. This show ran from 1983 to 1986, and then it moved on to his sister She-Ra so that they could also get girls interested in these toys. She-Ra also went on to 1988, and these two shows were incredibly popular. They had the top slots for syndication in the time, which comparatively was amazing. All other cartoons were basically Saturday morning cartoons, and this one was able to be shown Monday through Friday, which helped get children even more hooked into the mystical universe that they've created. Unfortunately, after that, things got a little bit rocky. The toy line started sagging because you can only make so many interesting toys for so long in one particular style. And then they tried to rejuvenate it by making a live action film, which was a massive, massive failure. They were hoping for something like $80 to $100 million sold in tickets and got 15. The storyline was just buggy. It was unrecognizable to children who were fans of Masters of the Universe. And following it, they tried one last time with a New Adventures of He-Man, and it was awful. While the original series had upwards of 300 episodes made, this had less than 70. It didn't make it into permanent syndication. It is not beloved by all like the original He-Man series was. And since then, that was kind of the final nail on He-Man's coffin for the longest time. They have tried from time to time to bring it back, and with varying degrees of success. In the early 2000s, we had a fairly decent animated series that garnered good ratings and sold plenty of toys, which is the measure of success for this franchise. It also didn't quite make it as long, but had higher success than the previous New Adventures. They still kind of try and get it up, and we've had a very popular She-Ra series recently. There's not really a toy line to go with it, so they've been able to spend more time focusing on a good story. And while this franchise is now more of a cult phenomenon than the massive cultural juggernaut than it once was, it still keeps trying and is the little engine that could as we get a new series here soon. And who knows what will come in the future. And I'd like to thank you for attending my presentation, and have a lovely evening.